The path to absolute power is paved with blood. For Wu Zetian, clearing that way meant eliminating every enemy, even her own flesh and blood. Now, she finally stands at the summit. But for a woman approaching 60, the real war is only just beginning. The year is 683 AD. Emperor Li Zhi passes away. For Wu Zetian, this isn't just the loss of a husband. It means the curtain she had ruled behind for years has vanished. The throne passes to her third son. But this new emperor inherited none of his mother's political genius. Almost immediately, he tries to hand the empire over to his wife's family. Wu Zetian cannot accept handing the state to such a foolish son. Just 55 days into his reign, she drags him off the dragon throne and exiles him to the frontier. Next, she pushes her fourth son onto the throne, but it is nothing more than a charade. He is a prisoner in his own palace. At this moment, Wu Zetian sees through it all. In this man's world, whether it is a father, a husband, or a son, they will eventually become stumbling blocks on her climb to the peak. She wants to be the true emperor. A woman becoming emperor was considered a crime against nature. Historians used their pens to curse her, calling it a hen crowing like a rooster, mocking her relentlessly. A famous poet named Luo Binwang wrote a brutal manifesto tearing her apart. After reading it, Wu Zetian didn't get angry. Instead, she smiled and asked who wrote it. She admired his sheer talent, even if that talent was used to destroy her. But do not mistake tolerance for weakness. When the rebel Shu Jingye launched an uprising in Yangzhou with 100,000 men to overthrow her, Wu Zetian didn't flinch. She coolly deployed 300,000 troops to suppress it. In just over 40 days, the rebel leader's head was delivered to Luoyang. This war proved to every man. She wasn't just a master of politics. She could command armies of thousands. While the historians in their ivory towers were still attacking her gender, the common people were looking at their rice bowls, and their bowls were full. Then, a famous scene in history unfolded. In the city of Luoyang, about 60,000 people gathered at the palace gates. They included commoners, monks, and even beggars, all there for one reason: to beg the Empress Dowager to take the throne. Facing this massive petition, Wu Zetian realized that the true mandate of heaven wasn't a myth carved in stone. It was in the eyes of these 60,000 people desperate for change. She accepted the flow of history. On September 9th, 690 AD, she deposed her own son and declared a new dynasty, the Zhou. She became the first and the only female emperor in Chinese history. In thousands of years of tradition, the dragon represents the male emperor, and the phoenix represents the empress, always the accessory. But for the first time, the phoenix soared above the dragon. To display this supreme power, she erected a giant bronze pillar in the center of Luoyang, named the Axis of the Sky. Standing over 100 feet tall, it was engraved with the names of every nation that bowed to her. She created a brand new name for herself, Wu Zhao. This was a character that didn't exist in the dictionary. Zhao. It is visually striking. The top is the sun and the moon, the bottom is the sky. The meaning is clear. The sun and moon hanging in the sky, illuminating the earth. This was an incredibly bold political statement. She didn't need to become a man to rule the world. Unlike the female pharaoh of ancient Egypt, she wore no fake beard. She is the sun, the moon, and the sky of this world. Wu Zetian had won. She had effectively become the sun and the moon, illuminating the entire earth. But beneath that blinding brilliance lay a vast, creeping shadow. She knew perfectly well that the men kneeling in her court submitted to her authority not out of loyalty, but out of fear. To maintain this fear, Wu Zetian initiated the most infamous surveillance state in Chinese history. She installed a terrifying device at court, the copper box. Ingeniously designed, it functioned like a one-way mailbox. Letters could be dropped in, but none could be fished out. Anyone could use it to secretly report directly to the emperor. At the same time, she unleashed a pack of professional enforcers known as cruel officials. An unprecedented reign of terror shrouded the capital city of Chang'an. Betrayal became the fastest shortcut to promotion. Every morning, when officials left for court, they would bid tearful farewells to their families, never knowing if they would return alive that night. Thousands of the Li royal family and opposition ministers were purged. Yet, Wu Zetian was a living paradox. On one hand, she employed brutal thugs. On the other, she placed her trust in upright chancellors like the famous Di Renji. He dared to contradict her to her face, even advising her to recall her exiled son. Surprisingly, this dictatorial emperor didn't kill him. Instead, she respectfully called him the elder of the state. She used vicious, mad dogs to guard her gates, but wise ministers to rule the world. For the aristocracy, she was a nightmare. But for the common people, she was a savior. Under her iron-fisted rule, not a single large-scale peasant uprising occurred. She slaughtered the nobles who opposed her, but distributed their confiscated land and wealth to the poor. The Silk Road became a pumping artery of trade. Over 25,000 foreigners resided in Chang'an. This represents the dual truth of Wu Zetian's rule. She used terror to maintain stability and used stability to buy prosperity. However, power is a poison. In her later years, Wu Zetian developed a pathological fear of aging. She spent hours every day applying heavy makeup, refusing to let anyone see her bare face. She took 2 brothers in their 20s as lovers. They were her living elixirs. She frantically believed that absorbing the energy of young men could restore her youth. She also became extremely suspicious, trusting no one, not even her own flesh and blood. Princess Yongtai was her favorite granddaughter, merely because the princess and her husband privately mocked these 2 pretty boys for bullying others. The favorites snitched to Wu Zetian. In a fit of rage, Wu ruthlessly forced the pregnant Princess Yongtai to commit suicide. She was only 17 years old. Remember this image. An 80-year-old woman to maintain her absolute authority, and for the sake of 2 male favorites, executed her own 17-year-old pregnant granddaughter. She successfully tamed the empire, but she ended up a completely isolated soul. In 705 AD, a long-planned conspiracy finally erupted. When the prime minister stormed the palace with the imperial guard, the emperor, now in her 80s, was lying on her sickbed. She looked at the ministers who had once knelt at her feet and asked only one question. "I promoted you. Are you now here to kill me?" At that moment, she was no longer a god. She was just a frail old woman, like a candle flickering in the wind. She was forced to hand over the imperial seal. Months later, the legend came to an end. Wu Zetian died alone in the Shangyang Palace. With her departure, that brief era of women also closed. During her reign, the status of women reached its peak in ancient China. A woman could draft edicts in the imperial court. A woman could ride horses, play polo, and even remarry. She was like someone chiseling a hole in the iron chamber of a patriarchal society. Although the hole was sealed up again after her death, that single beam of light has become a memory that history cannot erase. At the very end of her life, Wu Zetian made one last shocking decision. In her will, she did not ask to be buried as Emperor of the Great Zhou. Instead, she asked to open her husband, Li Ji's tomb, to be buried with her husband. This looked like a surrender. It was as if those 15 years as emperor were just a transgressive dream. Now the dream was over, and she returned the empire to the Li family, becoming a daughter-in-law of the Li clan once again. In front of her tomb, she erected a massive stone stele. An emperor's stele should be carved with tens of thousands of words praising their great achievements. But this stele is blank, the wordless stele. For over 1,000 years, countless people have guessed her intent. Some say she knew her sins were too heavy and dared not write. Some say she felt her achievements were so unparalleled that they were beyond words. Others say she left the judgment to the Li descendants. But perhaps this was her final and most biting mockery of that male-dominated world. This brilliantly smart woman knew in an era where men controlled history, whatever she wrote would be twisted. If she wrote she was a great emperor, people would call her shameless. If she wrote she was a virtuous emperor, that would be a lie about her glorious life. Since writing anything would be wrong, it was better to write nothing. She chose silence. She handed the power of judgment to time, to you and me, standing before the stele thousands of years later. When we strip away the historical slurs of tyrant and seductress, what we see is a soul that never yielded, possessing a will of iron. She spent her life proving a truth considered heresy in that era. In this man's world, you don't need a man to rule it. She is Wu Zhao. As the stele weathers away, the blank space she left behind, like the sun and moon in her name, still hangs in the sky of history, watching us.